Welcome to another episode of the Think Inclusion podcast, where we bring personal stories to life to help grow awareness and understanding of others' experiences. Our aim is to support each of us on our own individual journeys towards truly understanding inclusion, and then to help us take action without fear to make others feel seen, heard, and included every day. In this episode, I had the privilege of speaking with Phil McQuillen, a senior leader who shares his powerful journey of coming out, navigating identity, and leading with pride. Phil opens up about the challenges of being LGBTQ+ in professional spaces, the importance of visibility, and how allyship can show up in meaningful ways. His story is one of courage, authenticity, and leadership, and it's a reminder of how inclusion starts with speaking up and showing up. There's so much to take away from this conversation, so I hope that you enjoy the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Think Inclusion podcast. My name is Garry Clarke-Strange. My pronouns are he, him, and I am your host for this series. And I'm delighted today to be joined by another fantastic guest. I'll say hello firstly. Phil, hello. Welcome to Think Inclusion.
Hi, Garry. Good to meet you. Good to be on here today.
Thanks for being here, and thanks for agreeing to come on and share your story with us. And that's the premise of the Think Inclusion podcast. For anyone who's joining us for the first time, or even if you have listened before, this is a storytelling podcast where we encourage our guests to come on and talk about themselves, which seems like an easy concept to do, but we're talking about sometimes experiences that we've had in the past in order to help people learn more about others, learn more about inclusion, and learn more about difference. That's what we do. And storytelling is a really great way for us to do that. So Phil's going to be sharing his story today about being an out and proud LGBT leader, which I loved that from your kind of premise that you shared in advance with me, Phil, about talking about this episode, that you want to come and be proud of who you are, and also show that senior leaders in organizations can and should be proud of themselves, whoever they are. But obviously in the case of today, we are focusing on you being part of the LGBTQ+ community. And so I'm really excited to have this episode with you and have this conversation. Let's start by getting to know you. Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Phil McQuillen. My pronouns are he, him. You can probably tell by the accent, I'm a very, very proud Brummie. Brummie all the way through. Bit about me. So I'm a dog daddy. I've got two wonderful dogs called Marty and Ronnie. A grumpy Shar-Pei and a very crazy cockadoodle. That's what I'm supposed to call it, is a cockadoodle.
Wow.
A mix between a cocker spaniel and a labradoodle, supposedly. But yeah, so they're our life. I'm married to James. We've been married now. We've been together nearly 20 years, and we got married in 2013. I'm a big foodie. Love to travel. I love to go to Vegas regularly. Not a big spender. For anybody who thinks I might be, I'm not. But yeah, love to travel, see the world, try new experiences. That's me.
What's your job, Phil? What do you do?
Oh, yeah. What do I do day to day? So I work for Eon UK, where I'm culture, diversity and people lead. So my role is all about supporting people, be that from the tricky stuff around grievances and problems that people might be having, through to well-being, through to conversations about inclusivity, and through to also looking after things like I'm the chair of our Pride network at Eon, where we're a global network now of just over 1,000 people now on our various platforms, and we support our LGBTQIA+ colleagues across all of the Eon companies, all the way from the east over in Poland and Hungary, and we've got some colleagues in Turkey as well, over to the UK. And it was very much a personal passion of mine that we went east, because all the news, all the things we were seeing about problems they were having in Poland, about LGBT+ free zones, and what's currently happening in Hungary around Pride and things like that. It was a passion of mine that no matter where you are within the Eon organisation, you've got somewhere safe to be. And so it's one of my biggest, proudest moments is that we've now got this whole global network of LGBTQ+ people.
Well, kudos for that. And getting over 1,000 members in the network, I know from experience, is not an easy thing to do. And knowing that people across the organisation have that safe space is So important,
Cheers.
so important right now. I think sometimes we sit, even in the UK, a bit too pretty, thinking that everything is okay, and there's no problems for LGBT people anymore across the whole spectrum of LGBTQIA plus. But actually, the reality is that's not true anymore.
Oh,
There are a lot of challenges out there for many people in the UK and obviously much wider globally as well. So we need more people to stand up and be protective of rights in that space. But let's talk
absolutely.
about you then and you growing up. So kind of similar to me, I think age-wise, growing up in the 80s and 90s and in a world where there really wasn't positive role models out there for us to look at. I definitely found my kind of period of understanding that I was potentially at the time gay was a really isolating time for me. What was your experience, Phil? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this obviously beforehand, and it might sound like a dramatic word, and I think it almost is. And originally I was going to apologise for it, but I'm not going to. It was a lonely experience for me growing up in that period of time. There was a lot going on in the world. There was the whole AIDS crisis going on. There was the reaction of the UK government about how things were. So you just looked at the news, you looked at the TV, and you heard the broader world, and it meant it was a really lonely place to be. And there's a story that I talk about. I come from a town called Solihull, which is just outside of Birmingham, and one of the biggest things that had an impact on me as a gay kid was the two local newspapers, the freebies that used to always come out on a Friday, proudly announced on their front pages that Solihull had been named the least gay town in the UK. And it wasn't a negative news story. It was massive kudos to us as a town that we're not gay, everyone. Isn't this brilliant? So, as a
Uh,
kid who was struggling anyway with their own sexuality, not knowing anybody at school who was gay, not seeing anybody really in the media and TV that was a gay like me, and not coming from a family of people who I knew, I came from a very religious family. So not having those role models and people around me to go, I actually feel everything's going to be okay. I did what I think a lot of the gay community did at that point. I hid it away. So I
yeah,
pretended I wasn't. I pretended I was someone I wasn't. I put on a mask. I was the loud, happy, amazing Phil. And, I was well liked at school. I was really well known at school and college. But no one really knew me so it made it a very lonely experience because I just didn't have anyone. There was no
yeah.
one I could go and talk to. There wasn't an out and proud teacher at school or college that I could go and go, do you know what? I'm really struggling with my sexuality and my feelings. So I just locked it away, and hid it for a very long time.
And I think, as I said, it resonates a lot with me. And there wasn't, as well as people I think that we could potentially have that personal connection with, publicly as well, there wasn't really what I would class as positive role models. There were
No,
people being just kind of portrayed in the media as gay, but not necessarily in the most positive way, as someone you would look up and aspire to be like. And I'm with you, like especially in my school, it was only ever a slur. It was only ever a bad
absolutely.
thing
Yeah,
to talk about being gay, and there was no one who was ever saying that being gay was a positive thing to be. So therefore, I think we come to a place where we just have this internalized shame that we have grown up with that was there, that this was always seen to be a bad thing.
absolutely. And I think that's a really good word. It was shame, and I felt very afraid of talking about it because
Yeah.
if I did, how were people going to react? What was going to be their opinion on it? Because you simply didn't know what people thought about it. Whereas you fast forward to now, and rightly or wrongly, people are more vocal about talking about their own personal opinions on it. So in the main, you will know where you're going to come. But it still frightens me to come out because we do like I know people say all the time as a gay man, I come out every time I meet somebody new, and so that fear still exists. But I recognise I don't do that anymore. But going back to those years as a kid growing up, I was on my own, and it was just me, and yeah, I didn't know what I was going to do and who I could talk to, and I'd look at TV, and there was those stereotypes, like you say, that the media had created, but they weren't me. And they weren't necessarily a gay person. They were a pretend. They were someone that was acting to be something that they're not
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not what it is today. Like, what the great thing is today is there's so much representation across media and across, we're going to talk about you and your organization in a second, but across society in general, there are positive role models out there. When did you
Absolutely.
come out, Phil? What was your coming out experience?
So my coming out experience was a bit of I didn't really come out until my mid-20s,
Okay.
late 20s, and that was because I've got no one around me. I didn't know how to deal with the whole coming out, and how to talk to people. So it was mainly through work. It was because of work, getting into the working world, because I made friends at work who then happened to be gay. I still didn't tell them I was gay for quite probably about 2 years, because I hadn't told myself I was. And so through my work, I then made a really solid group of friends, and we'd all work together. And I remember the night that a friend's house party, I took somebody aside and I know her, and I said to Liz, I don't know how to tell everybody, but I'm gay. And she went, oh, thank God, finally. You're going to tell us. We've all been waiting. And I was like, what? She's going to tell everyone knows. And I was like, oh. And and it was still really hard, but I knew I needed that because of my family situation. I knew I needed that safe
Circle.
space,
Yeah.
that I've got a circle of trust and I've got a group of people that are going to protect me and not judge me. And it was like, and I remember it. I went back into the room with all our other friends, and she went, "Phil's got something to tell us." And I told them, and they were like, "Yeah." Anyway, and they all just moved on, and they were all really pleased that I'd finally come out and talked
Yeah.
about it. But for me, I needed that because I knew what was coming next, and I knew what was coming next with my family. And it wasn't actually until the day after my 30th birthday that I told my parents, and they were the last two people to know. And it wasn't a nice experience. It was a horrible experience. But I knew I needed everything else around me in order to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can talk about this story now because I fast forward many years and my mom and dad are very accepting now. My dad's passed away now, but at the time they weren't accepting. I lost contact with them for a good 6 months. My dad admitted to me that had he had had a knife close to me on the night that I told him, he would have wanted to kill me, and that is that's something that will always stick with me. But fast forward, he never did that, and he never would have done that. They were just words. I know they
There's
were just
emotions.
words. There were emotions, but then we fast forward, like I say, and they came to accept me and my relationships, and my now husband. They love to pieces. They're not complete. My mom isn't completely accepting. She never will be because of her religious beliefs, but she understands and she gets it and she accepts our relationship and who we are.
Yeah.
So my coming out in a nutshell it was about creating a safe space for me.
Yeah. And I think there's so many people who are, who have grown up in this kind of similar experience to yourself and myself, who did have to create that safe space and where you can just be authentically you and then deal with the other stuff that is coming over time and when you're ready or when it presents itself. But I think a lot of us kind of then would revert back to that safe space where we know we were protected. And it looked different for different people. Mine would look
Absolutely.
different to yours, but we had to have that there in order to know that we could somewhat get through some of the harder times that comes out. You talked a bit there about kind of that group of friends that you created was a work group circle for you. What
Yeah.
was your early days of working like and kind of coming out as openly gay? Was it met with support consistently? Were there any challenges there?
From my experience, from a work perspective, I I came out, but it was never a big announcement at work. It was just a natural thing that happened, that if people knew and if people asked for a long time, that was how I approached my coming out at work.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really until I started at Eon 10 years ago where I faced into I was personally challenged by a colleague. They didn't actually say anything, but it was what they said to a group of people. And we were in a leadership event, and my friend, and he won't mind saying his name, Tim talked about his husband and in front of the whole room, and I was like, I don't really do that. I still use the word partner, and I don't use husband. And I've been married for a number of years now. Why am I frightened about doing that? And Tim encouraged me through that conversation, not by telling me to do anything, to then start being a bit more open about who I was and where I was at work, and seeing, and as a leader at work and being in that middle senior leadership bracket that I am at Eon, recognizing that there was a light bulb moment of, just a minute, there's no one like me above me within the organisation. So does that mean I've got to step into this space? And for a while I pushed back against it. It's like, I don't want to step into this space. But then I realised, actually, when I look back and like we talked about creating that safe space when I was young through me coming out, I recognised I needed to create this safe space at Eon where the LGBT community, no matter who they are, and where they are in their own journeys, that they know there's a safe space for them. So as a leader, I needed, and it's become a real passion of mine to go, I need to talk about this stuff. I need to talk about Phil, because, what I've been through can help people.
Yeah.
Through what I've been through, it can encourage other people to go, actually, and this isn't derogatory about me, by the way, everyone, that if Phil can do it, so can I.
Yeah.
And that whole, and I remember one of the first, we called them in Eon time to talk sessions, where we just get people together and we talk about a topic, invite them onto a call. One of our first things that me and Tim did together, we talked about how being gay wasn't a barrier to having a career. And that for me really resonated with a lot of people and a lot of the community, because they're able to go, actually, yeah, they're right. We can be senior leaders and we can move on in the organisation. It doesn't prevent us from doing more in the organisation. And I guess that's where I've then got to within my leadership career, is to go, actually, this isn't about me now. This is about what I'm leaving for other people, and making sure that everybody in the community has that safe space to go to.
And sees the role models, right? They're so
Yeah.
important. I was really lucky that the organizations I worked in, industry wise as well, probably had a very openly LGBT presence, even at senior levels. So when I entered the workspace, I always saw senior leaders who were out and proud gay, who were succeeding. So it was always in my head. And I think I just thought that was the norm, Phil. And then obviously over the years, I've been talking to people and they're like, are you joking? Like, that's not the norm in most, just because the industries that I worked in, it was more prevalent. And I hear you talking and I go, God, there's so many industries out there where that isn't the norm. And it does take people like you to kind of stand up and go, okay, well, I'm going to be that out and proud leader, right?
Absolutely. And I think that not particularly, but the energy industry, it's in so many different ways. It's not an inclusive industry. We ran a workshop a few weeks ago for some students, all girls, to come in and find out about Eon, because only 1 in 5 people in the energy industry are female, and it's even worse if you look at technical roles. And we have that issue at Eon, and we recognise it, and it's something we're working really hard on. Hence why we ran this workshop. But there's lots of that where I don't see anybody above me who is an out and proud leader. So to become that leader was like, what? I've got to do this.
That's pressure, Phil.
It is a lot of pressure, and it's scary. But at the same time, I've seen it as empowering, because I've seen how it's changed people's lives, and I've seen how we can have a voice for the people who right now either don't have it, don't know how to use their voice, or are afraid to use their voice, particularly with what's happened in the UK. around gender and the definition of a woman. I had a colleague reach out to me when that all happened to say, I'm frightened, Phil, to come into work. I transitioned 18 years ago,
Yeah.
and I'm now being told I can't use the toilet of my gender. What do I do? And that's where as a leader and as a chair of our network at Eon, I could step into that space and go, right, how do we reassure all of our colleagues? How do we make sure that that group of colleagues feel like they can come to work and still feel safe? Because right now they don't. And we've worked with the leaders and we've worked with people, but that's through, it's through my privilege of knowing those other more senior leaders that I've been able to make those things happen. And if that means I have to be the conduit, the person that they used to make those things happen, and bring it on.
And I mean, I guess the flip side is, imagine there wasn't somebody like you, Phil, who was willing to do that and put yourself out there to do it. Who would that person connect with? Probably nobody. Like what kind of many people have grown up in the career, no role model or no safe space to be able to go and talk to people. So therefore, they revert into the background and they don't get to be their authentic self, right?
Exactly, and then they end up leaving the organisation because they don't feel
Yeah,
welcome. So you're losing talent, you're losing people with key skills, and you're losing it because they just don't feel that they can talk and they can be safe at work.
yeah.
So why wouldn't you do that? Why? It's that whole thing, isn't it? Of just be kind and look after people, and that's what it's about.
There was something you said there before as well about kind of, I guess, what I'm hearing coming out but you is, you're empowering confidence in other people and enabling them to have confidence in being themselves. But that in itself was a journey for you. Like you taught there about, the confidence of say, moving from saying partner to husband. And actually, I think a lot of us in the community have felt that, because we faced the microaggressions for years, have been asked about our
Yeah,
girlfriend or our wife when it wasn't, that wasn't true to us. And it's so interesting. Again, maybe I didn't realize at the time, but seeing other leaders talking about their husband so openly really encouraged me. But I was still nervous, and the getting married part was the bit where I moved from being more comfortable from saying what I used to say, boyfriend. I probably would say partner. I still felt a bit nervous. But when I got a double barrel name, it just kind of opened the doors for me. I was like, well, people probably will guess it anyway. So I'm double barreled. So therefore, now I just throw husband out to anyone that will listen, but also maybe overtly too much, because I'm conscious that I want to make, this could be my own internal issues, I don't know, but I want to get that out early. So it's out of the
yeah.
way. I kind of feel like I need to get it out there so at least I can tick in my mental brain that says, I've done the coming out card, now we can move on with whatever this new relationship is work-wise. And like, I shouldn't have to do that, but it's the reality that a lot of us have to do. We're conscious to get that out.
No, absolutely, and you do, and I do it all the time, and I consciously think how I've got to purposely talk about this, because then once I do, I can then be my authentic self at work,
Yeah,
and I'm being genuine with people. I'm not saying, I'm not being something different, and
I love that.
and that's tricky, because I think you're right. Some of it is a self thing from what we've all been through in the past. To go, I've got to act like this because the sooner people know, the better. And
And why do we need to throw it out there? Like we do, it's
exactly,
actually in some cases we don't even need to out ourselves, but there's something in us that we have to. Definitely for me, like, I just have to kind of get it out, and then I know it's done. And maybe it is, so then I can just be my authentic self. But my authentic self doesn't change because I've outed myself. I'm still the same person, but
no.
maybe I'm more comfortable with it. When I said it out loud, God, this is like a therapy session,
It
Phil.
is the therapy
How
session,
did
isn't
this?
it? It's
How did
great.
this
I
go
love it.
down that road? And Phil, what you talked there about the situation with the trans employee, and I'm so glad to kind of revert back to that. They had you to reach out to, because like a lot of people, when that ruling came in, we were really concerned for the trans community about how they were feeling. But if you think about the overall impact you've made by your ability and your willingness to stand up as this out and proud leader and lead the Pride Network, what is the part that you've been most proud of within that?
God, that's a big question. Um, I think it is. I think the biggest thing for me has been how much it's given the community a voice within the organisation,
Okay.
um, and it's given everyone in the organisation the ability to know that they can talk about it. If I think back 9 years ago, nearly 10, when I joined Eon, there was me and now one of my best friends at work, Tim, in a room having meetings about LGBT and how do we get a network. And like you fast forward, we've now got 1,000 regular people who are engaging with the network. We
Yeah.
had a conference last year in Prague, the first one that we've ever had at Eon for our community specifically. Got another one this year, and uh, it's just created a space where it's really great that people can talk about our community all the time, and it is so visible. Probably, I know this is going to sound random, but probably one of the proudest things I see is when I go on LinkedIn and I see various people from Eon posting about different things. They've all got the rainbow lanyards on, which we produced as not as a particularly as anything planned symbol, but it's become something that people go, I've got this lanyard on, I'm a safe space for you as a community. And
Yeah.
to see so many people being able to do that, I think it's, for me, it's that sense of space that's created at Eon for that of us as a group of colleagues.
Because it's natural allyship, right? By wearing that,
Absolutely.
people are choosing to wear that lanyard at work, and they're showing that, if they're not part of the community, that they're an advocate and they're an ally. And it does speak volumes. And I'm with you as well. I love when I see people proudly supporting it every day just by virtue. And I don't think people sometimes realize the power of wearing that lanyard by
No.
making that choice to wear it. That is powerful.
Yeah, it is. And I was at our headquarters a few weeks ago, and the number of people that I saw wearing that lanyard, I was just like, we made that happen. And
Yeah.
it's just lovely to see, like you say, it's knowing that anybody in the community then can look at that person and go, I know they're a safe space if I ever needed it.
Yeah. I think what's critical, because hearing you talking about the effort that's gone into the network, to the Pride network, is that as well. It's not just rainbow washing. It's not just throwing a lanyard out there during Pride Month for people to wear. Actually, you've had a conference, you've had safe spaces where people can get together. You've got there's credible activity happening behind all this, because there is a risk that you do just throw
Oh,
out some branding and then nothing lands as a result of that, and that can be damaging. But actually, if it's backed up by credible activity, then that lanyard and that show of support internally and externally in the community is exasperated, right?
absolutely. And I think that's the thing for me has always been, it's not been about the business coming to us as a community and going, oh, what can we turn into a pride flag today? What colours can we use? It's always been about the community reaching out to the business to say, we would like to do this, will you support us? And I think that's the critical thing for me, because then that stops that whole pink washing, which none of us can stand. We're just going to change the logo to a load of rainbow colours for Pride Month and then change it back again. But we're
Yeah.
not going to support you through the rest of the year. We absolutely don't have that within Eon. It is about that whole approach, and it's about all the networks. And it's not just now about us as an LGBT network, it's about the others as well, because it's about how we can push all the other different things forward so that everybody is creating a safe space for their own communities.
Yeah. And that behavior breeds behavior across your organization, where people are seeing inclusion and
Yeah,
kind of conversation happening. And I think something that a lot of the focus on today we've been talking about is the leadership role of being, as you in your particular case, it's out and proud. But it's certainly from my experience, a lot of people in leadership roles fail to recognize the shadow that they're casting over their organization and the impact that their behavior, that their values, how they act, how they speak at work, how that impacts on everybody across the organization. That shadow that is casting is absolutely massive.
yeah.
And you've given an example today of how you have kind of stood up there and put yourself out there, and it is putting yourself out there, and you're casting that shadow of acceptance for the LGBTQ community across all of Eon in your case. And there's other people out there doing it in other organizations. It's so
Yeah.
important. But if there is someone who is a leader who's listening today, in whatever type of role, a leader or a manager, but they're in an organization and they don't really know how to exist in the space, whether it is as someone who is part of a community that wants to be like you and kind of stand up for that community, or as an ally to any community, what advice would you give them? How do you encourage them to understand and use that shadow positively?
for me, and I've had these conversations with a few people, they're just going to be a bit brave and find. And I say that in the way that you that braveness doesn't have to be on a big platform in front of 200 people or at a town hall where you've got hundreds of people listening to you. It can just be a one-to-one conversation with somebody that you're leading. And that is the thing for me. It's been about then having that brave conversation to go, actually, I'm Phil, I'm a gay man and I'm a leader and I'm here to support you and show it through those actions by being brave. It's about having that conversation with whoever it is, big, small, medium sized, to be able to go, this is me. And this is part of my journey, and telling that story of whatever that is, because as a leader, we all have that responsibility to act in a certain way because you have a responsibility as a leader. But if you've then got something that is attached to you as a leader, in my case being part of the LGBT community, whether it's somebody that's got neurodiversity, whether it's somebody with their ethnic background or socioeconomic background, whatever it is, it's important that you talk about it because there is somebody out there that needs to hear it. So I would say to them, just be brave and start talking about you.
And I think brave is a really great word to use there because, I wouldn't underestimate it. Putting yourself out there, putting the attention on you, whether, as you said, regardless of the community you're part of, is brave because you are focusing on you, but it is making an impact on other people. I reflect back to, I think we talked a couple of times back, if those people existed in society and in workplaces when we were younger, then it would have been different. It absolutely would have been different for us. And I think that's a perfect place for us to start to end our conversation, Phil. Encouraging others to follow your lead and to be brave and to step out there and support other people. I always kind of say, and I think I've said it a few times in this podcast, if you're only making an impact to one person, that's enough. Absolutely. It's totally okay to make an impact. You're probably making impact to more people because your impact will be growing over time. And often you don't even know about the impact you're making because it kind of, that behavior is breeding other people's behavior, but it is making a change. And we need more Phils in the world.
Thank you, we do. I agree. We absolutely do. Yeah.
Glad you agree. Phil, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming and being so honest with us and so open. And continued success is what we wish you. As an out and proud LGBT senior leader, keep it going, and thank you for being part of Think Inclusion.
Thank you, Garry.
That conversation really made me stop and think. Hearing Phil's story, his journey of coming out, leading with authenticity and advocating for inclusion offers a powerful perspective on what it means to show up fully, both in life and leadership. And that's the point of the Think Inclusion podcast. It's about sharing stories that help us expand our thinking and understanding simply by listening to others. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and remember, if your company is looking for support in turning your inclusion goals into reality, I'm here to help in many different ways. Get in touch with me at Garry@thinkinclusionconsulting.com. That's Garry, Garry, and let's see what we can achieve together. See you next time.